Sarah from Complete ABA Therapy. And I'll let them, rather than take up presentation time with reading bios, I'll let them tell you about themselves in their own words. But I want to welcome Ashley and Tracy to be with us for our workshop day and welcome you all. We also have a couple of different events coming up right over the summer. One of them is our Play 60 camp with the NFL and the Panthers. So if you haven't heard about that yet and your child is second grade through high school, please pick up one of those forms and get signed up because we need 75 kiddos in order to continue with the program. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here, and let's get on with the show.
Hey everybody, I'm Ashley, this is Tracy, and we are both board certified behavior analysts, and we opened up our little company called Complete ABA a little over a year ago, and kind of through the years have done a lot of toilet training with a lot of kiddos and kind of honed this approach a little bit, and Terry was kind enough to ask us to come speak about a year ago, and we're back today, so thanks for having us. This topic obviously brings up a lot of questions with kind of everyone along the way, so if you have a question and you feel like you don't want to forget it, please feel free to ask and chime in. This is a very informal, we're not informal people, so very informal back and forth, the better. I will say if it's something like really specific to your kiddo, we'll hang around for a little bit at the end and you're welcome to come up and chat with us. And we are here to help. So what we like to do first is just kind of get an idea of age ranges of kiddos. So if you have one that's younger than 4, okay, how about like that 5 to 10-ish range? And older than 10. Okay.
No, 5. Sorry.
Oh, 5, okay, good, awesome. Anyone older than 10? Okay, anyone, show of hands if you've attempted potty training before. Forever, and we're still here. So, came to the right place. Well, the biggest thing that we can take away from this, I think, is, and we'll get to the slide, but what I want you to kind of keep your ears out for is that there's 2 main parts to toilet training. There's kind of a phase 1 and a phase 2. So just keep that in your minds as we go forward. And I think this is how I click. Okay, so what we want to start with is what is ABA? What is applied behavior analysis? Why is this at all applicable to toilet training? Why is it successful with toilet training? So ABA, it is a science. It's an evidence-based method, and what we look at is increasing socially significant behavior. So what does that mean? Well, behaviors that we want to see more of, we want to reinforce, figure out what we need to do to maintain that behavior, to keep it sticking around. And then behaviors that we don't want to see as much of, how do we make sure that we don't reinforce those, that we don't give those behaviors what they want in order to make them go away. What we look at that's incredibly important is looking at increasing a functional replacement skill. So right now, I'll kind of sneak over here, right now with toileting, kind of that inappropriate behavior that we want to decrease or get rid of is the soiling of the underpants. The behavior that we want to increase is defecating or urinating on the toilet. So you're always going to look at what do I want to get rid of, but what do I want to replace it with? So that's what we do with behavior analysis. We look at increasing functional language, daily living skills, self-help skills, vocational, some academics where it's appropriate, and then really getting into the adaptive behaviors. And what we look at, of course, like I said, is you want to figure out what not really what is it that I want to get rid of, but what is it that I want to see more of. And we use principles of reinforcement to do that. And so any further questions about that, we can certainly chat later, but that's just a little background. And Tracy can probably add a little bit more about the antecedents, behaviors, and consequences too.
So with ABA, the big thing we look at is antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. So we look at what happens before the behavior, directly before we look at the behavior, and we look at what happens directly after. So in terms of, for toileting, the behavior would be toileting, whether it's having an accident or going in the toilet. So going in the toilet, where the consequence is going to be a heavy consequence in our world. For a lot of people hear that and they think something very negative happens. Consequence is just what happens after. It can be a positive thing or a negative thing. So in this case, if it's toileting in the toilet, the consequence is going to be something very positive. We're going to give them very heavy positive reinforcement after that to increase that behavior. Whereas if it's something that, if they're having an accident, what happens after, we're going to make sure that we are not reinforcing that behavior with some sort of positive reinforcement. And we'll get a little bit more into ways to reinforce using the toilet versus having accidents as we go throughout this slide, but that's kind of, we manipulate the environment to set up for behaviors to occur or not occur with our antecedent strategies. But we'll get into that a lot more in detail throughout this slide. I don't know what you're
I think you just click, I think they're just.
Oh.
There we go. So why toilet train? Well, obviously you're all like, well, I wouldn't be here, but I'd have that same question. It's important to toilet train for a lot of reasons. One of them, it's gonna increase independence with your child. Whether your child is 2, 3, 4, or whether they're 18 years old, it's going to increase their independence, that they can take themselves to the toilet without any kind of assistance. It's also a really socially significant behavior. It's important in maintaining, the dignity of our children so they're not having accidents. At times where maybe they shouldn't, when they get into school, avoid embarrassment, all that kind of stuff. So again, it's important. It may not be easy during the process. So when you hear us talking, you're gonna go, how am I gonna do this? Hang in there. But it is easier for everyone ultimately if we can get our kids out of, and cheaper, get them out of the diapers, right? So the first step that we start with is this toilet readiness. I think there's a big misconception that a child turns 3, they have to be potty trained. No. We wanna make sure that a child or an adolescent is ready to be toilet trained before you start. You cannot will a child into toilet training. You can certainly do things like Tracy explained to make sure that you're maintaining this appropriate behavior of urinating in the toilet. But we can't do that until a few things have been met. So just kind of in your heads, you can just kind of think, are these things that my child does? Do they stay dry for 60 to 90 minutes at a time? That being said, every time you change their diaper, are you still having to change it every hour, or are they able to go 4 or 5 hours before you're like, oh wow, that diaper's, pull up is pretty wet. When they urinate, are they trickling just a little bit? Like, is their diaper pretty much always wet? Or, are they really going, a significant amount of time without having any wetness, in diapers? And, do they seem wet a lot at once? What this tells us is that your child's going for a really long time with a dry diaper, underpants, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you go, holy moly, your diaper's about to fall apart because it's so wet. That means that they're fully eliminating all at one time, which is a very good thing. Just like when we go to the toilet, we don't just go a little bit, we empty our bladders and go on throughout our day. So those are some things that we want to look at in terms of the bowel control, or the bladder control, and bowels, but looking at that bladder control. The last one, and Tracy can add.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, part of some of this too, we wanna eliminate any sort of like medical issues too.
Yes.
Because there could be some sort of medical issue of having that control.
Absolutely.
Do they have that ability or inability to control their bladder?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. And then with awareness, does your child have a way to communicate that they do have, in fact, a soiled diaper or a wet diaper? Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a sign, maybe it's a picture exchange system. The form of communication doesn't matter as much as long as there is a way that they can communicate these things. Do they kind of sneak into the corner when they've just on number 2, and you look at them and they look at you and they laugh, and that whole game back and forth? So just some different things. Is there any awareness going on where you think, oh, like they definitely know they're wet? Are they acting uncomfortable? Are these things kind of ringing bells? How many of you feel like, yes, like my kid is definitely dry for a significant period of time? Is anyone kind of there yet? Okay, good, awesome. And if we're not here yet, not a big deal, totally fine, and we can chat after about, what are some other things that, to really help look out for. And like Tracy said, you always wanna make sure there's not an underlying medical concern, and a lot of times there is. But through the process and through the years, that's why we kind of say, your kid doesn't have to be 3 to start this, they can be 8. One thing that we do like to point out is, in the world of behavior analysis, when we look at different behaviors, the longer you practice a behavior, the better that you get at it. Kind of like why our 16-year-olds are such terrible drivers at first. Well, they just learned that behavior, they're not used to it yet, but by the time you get older, hopefully we're a little bit better. Same thing with toileting. So the longer that kids practice urinating in a diaper or in a pull-up, the harder it's gonna be to go back and teach them to go otherwise, but it still doesn't mean that we start before they're ready, if that kind of makes sense. So you do have to find that good balance between the two.
They've been, if you start when they're 16 years old, they've been practicing, or 8 years old, they've been practicing wetting themselves for that many years versus starting earlier. But again, you don't wanna start too soon because you're going to then just lose your patience completely. Or just have so many failures and make the whole toileting process very aversive because they weren't ready. So you have to find that balance.
Can we, like with awareness, what, there's no awareness.
No awareness, how old?
He's 5.5.
Yeah, so that may be part of it too. And again, when we talk about toileting, and that's why we don't, this presentation applies to anyone, whether you're looking at a typically developing 2-year-old or a 19-year-old on the autism spectrum, it with anything. Behavior is behavior regardless of ability or disability. And so when we're looking at this, when we're looking at that awareness, is there a way to communicate?
Well, he can communicate.
Wonderful, yeah. So then part of it too is that when you're looking at the awareness, if you got kind of 2 of 3 checked off, you can teach that third one. But so is there awareness? Well, there may not be, but maybe have you tried potty training before?
Yeah.
A little bit here and there. So, and part of it may be that there's still that maybe he or she doesn't know, oh, like I'm supposed to
Right.
go into the toilet. And that's what when Tracy pointed out, looking at the behaviors and the consequences, with toilet training, one of the things, this may be on our next slide, one of the things that we like to really kind of point out is that toileting and verbal communication, 2 things that you literally cannot physically prompt. You cannot get into their vocal cords to produce a sound for them. I'm sure, as Susie knows, and with toileting, you cannot physically make them urinate. So what we look at with behavior analysis is, how do I make that consequence or that reinforcement strong enough that when they do it, they're gonna remember that and they're gonna practice that behavior of urinating over and over and over. So it may be that, and we can kind of get into this a little bit, but the more that you put them on the toilet, when you catch them, you're giving that strong reinforcement that it's that, oh, well, pretty cool, next time I feel this feeling, I'll come back. But a lot of times it takes some pretty significant practice. So in terms of the awareness, a lot of times that's the one that can be taught more than the control can. So that's a great question.
Feeling that feeling.
Yes.
And I guess this pertains to everybody because, children with Down syndrome and the low muscle tone is
Absolutely.
being able to feel that it's coming on.
Right.
Being able to stop and run
Right.
to the bathroom, make it, being able to control, and feel that it's coming.
Right.
And I've got 3 kids, so like I know when they're about to pee and they look down and
Yeah.
it comes out.
Yep.
That's a good
How do you
sign.
back
They feel
up?
it coming.
Yes, yes.
Clearly have another boy too.
Right.
So I know that's a good, but
Yes.
being able to stop and play, oh, I feel like I have to pee, being
Yes.
able to hold it with a low muscle tone, make it to the
Right.
potty and fully eliminate.
Yeah. That's what we get into in just a little
Okay,
bit, is and what Tracy pointed out, how do you manipulate your antecedents or what goes on before the behavior? We wanna stay ahead of it, we wanna, we wanna try to prevent the accidents, how can we put ourselves on a schedule, put them on a schedule? Obviously, at the end of the day, the hope is just that they go on their own, but, how many of our kids have major tantrums just cause you tell them, you gotta go to school now, you can't keep playing Legos?
Right.
These are transitioning away from a preferred item or a play item to go toileting, that's a huge demand. So what we look at in this, and that we'll get to, is how do you manipulate that, so it's not, so that's the behavior that we're
Right,
teaching
right,
as well, yeah, that's a great question. So just some other things of, when is your child ready? One thing that we like to point out too is, can they pull their pants up and down? This is incredibly important. However, when we're teaching toileting, we're teaching them literally just to pee on the potty or poop, defecate on the potty. The independence of walking in there by themselves, pants up and down, sitting on the potty, getting off of the potty, pants back up, washing hands, that whole process you can teach after. So we don't like to place both demands at once, because that's really high effort for our kiddos, to do all of that at once. So we'll get to that as well. And then the last little part about, are they able to sit up to 5 to 15 minutes? We are not your 2 people that are gonna tell you to keep your kids in a toilet or in a bathroom for 3 days on a weekend and just keep them on a potty all day, every day. You came to the wrong presentation if that's the approach you're looking for. We like to make this feasible for everyone. I'm not saying that that approach maybe wouldn't work, we just come to find that that's not the one that generalizes the best and is applicable to many different settings and different people. So are they able to sit for 5 to 15 minutes? We throw that in there because, well, before they're gonna pee, they have to be able to stand there and maintain some kind of attention or sit for a period of time long enough to where you would hopefully catch them and be able to reinforce that behavior. But that does not mean that when you toilet train, you have to sit your child on the potty for 12 of the 24 hours in the day. So just know that. Here's the biggest one. Are you ready for toilet training?
This is probably like the biggest question
Yep.
we ask parents. Like parents will come to us and be like, all right, let's work on potty training with our kid. And the first question we ask is, are you ready? And if they're like, I don't really have the time, we're like, all right, talk to us when you do. Like, we're not even gonna discuss it then. Because it's so important for the parents and the whole family to be on board, because it's not gonna be some quick overnight thing. We love it, sometimes it might be, but a lot of the times it's going to take a little bit of time. So we always ask, like, are there big changes coming up? Are y'all going on vacation? Like, is a kid changing schools? Is he starting school? Is he getting out of school? Like, those sorts of things. We love it if it's like a long break from school, because then he's gonna be home, he or she is gonna be home from school more. Like the home for at least 2 weeks, like that's what we're looking for, no breaks. And can you devote like a really intensive time to the process? Because it's intensive at first. But again, we're not asking you to spend 12 of your 24 hours on the toilet, no. But it's gonna be accidents at first, it's gonna be frustrating at first, but if you start it like, all right, I got this for a day, and then you quit for another day, then you just went back like a whole lot. So you just have to be like on it and ready to go. So it's just important that everyone is on board.
Now you're all like, I'm leaving this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're encouraging us to do this in like 2 weeks?
No.
No,
Because I've been doing this for like 5 years.
Yeah, no.
And I'm like,
No.
so I just need to commit to 2 weeks. I mean, I've tried that, I've done the whole
Yeah.
underwear thing, and never pull up the diaper again, and.
so the reason that we say this is because when you're looking at behavior, the more something is inconsistent, the more that you're not able to follow through, it's called intermittent reinforcement. And so what that means is, if your child is able to, for a whole weekend, what's a weekend, basically 2 days, like for a whole 2 days, you're taking them every 30 minutes, you're putting them on the potty, they're eliminating, there's gummy bears galore, everything's great and fine and dandy, and then Monday comes around, and they go to school, or maybe you get off of your schedule, and they're able to pee in their diaper or their underpants again a few more times, that's that intermittent reinforcement of, oh well, this wasn't a big deal, like I didn't have to go to the potty and I'll just pee in my diaper, whatever. That behavior of peeing in the diaper again has just probably been reinforced by someone, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but it's not even like the cleanup that's are you ready, but it's are we able to take them reliably every so many minutes, and then fading back from that and doing it really incrementally. So that's kind of when we say, this isn't something where we say, oh, you're gonna be done in 2 weeks. For a typically developing child, it takes 6 months to fully potty train between onset of potty training and when they are hopefully starting to stay dry overnight. Maybe not all the time, because that doesn't really even need to take place until, age 5, 6-ish before it becomes a concern. But you're looking at 6 months, of truly no accidents ever. And so it's a process. That doesn't mean that you're taking them to the potty every 30 minutes for 6 months, but just know that this isn't an overnight thing.
Joanne, if I can answer your question, part of the reason that we planned this for
Yeah.
this time of year is a lot of our families who've been to these sessions before do this over summer.
Yeah.
Because we did it over spring break, it was the
Right.
same kind of thing, because we had 10 days where we did the, every 30 minutes, and
Right.
actually then we worked with Natalia
Yes,
before she
yes,
left. And
yeah.
we did knocked that back to 15 minutes for a little while, and then
Right.
every 30 minutes, and, so it's not that intensive forever, but it does feel like when you first started.
Yeah.
Right, but it's doable, cause I
Yeah,
always see the typical
absolutely.
kids,
Yes.
it's, you can do it in a weekend, you can do it in the 3 days,
Right.
but.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, but once you get that success, and they're gonna talk about this, then it does get easier. By the time we were done with 10 days, we had seen enough success that Kim was ready to then try it at school. I don't think we could have even started in a weekend. there's no
Right.
way. It's too intensive and would have been too big of a transition for him, but
Right.
It will-
summer is
yeah,
coming.
That's right. And
How
what
old was
yeah.
Cam? How old was he when you did it?
Cam was 5 when we started, but we were very lucky. We had no success before we had started, in the ABA therapy approach to it, which I think was probably more for Mark and I than it was for Cam.
Yeah.
It was taking the data instead of just how we emotionally felt about how often he was going.
Yeah.
And that was huge. And like I said, by the end of that 10 days, he started back to school. Our teachers were on board. They
Yeah,
were
you
using the
never
same
did.
reinforcers, the same song that Mark wrote. They played it, recording of it every time he went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And we saw immediate success to the point where 3 weeks after we had started, his teachers were telling us he was toilet trained.
Right.
Yeah, and
So-
I'm sorry, I wanted to make that point too, it's not just you physically in this room, it's you, your entire community of caregivers and teachers.
Schools,
Yep.
teachers and
Yeah.
AI.
Our
So
whole
they are in
family ran to the
daycare.
bathroom to sing
Yeah.
Cam's potty song.
Yeah.
Mark wrote it on the piano, everybody had to have it on their phone in case daddy wasn't home to play it, and then we recorded it and the teachers had it, but literally, at one point, there were 5 of us and 2 dogs, all in the
Yeah,
bathroom around
Do you
Cameron.
still do that song, or
You know what
that
was
went
funny?
away?
You know what was funny? After probably about 2 months of doing it, he was like, top,
I'm over this?
top,
Right.
Yeah.
you know? And then Mark was like,
Cut off the song.
you don't want my song anymore?
Right.
You know, and then it was, now shut the door, I don't even want you near me when I go to the bathroom. You know, and they told us that, the ABA therapist told us, you will feel like a cheerleader, it will be annoying, and you will think you're gonna do it forever, and your child will tell you when it's time to stop. And it felt like he was never gonna stop, but when he was done, it was very much, that's it.
Yeah, you got it.
I got it, cut it out.
It wasn't
So the
back and
song
forth.
was
That
the
was the
reinforcement
reinforcer.
versus like food.
No, we had that
Yeah,
too.
okay.
You might think could care less about food. We
So,
have a
and
police
we'll,
siren.
and,
Yeah,
and
they'll
we'll get
cover
into
that.
that, yeah, and we'll get into that too, because whereas some kids love songs, that may be a total aversive stimulus to some other
Right.
kiddos, maybe they don't like noise, maybe they don't like songs,
Yeah.
maybe they want, you know, so we'll get into that too, but your reinforcer, your preferred items that you're using are specific to your individual child. When we say reinforcement, all that reinforcement means is that a behavior increases. It's not happy, it's not sad, we don't put terms like that with reinforcement. Reinforcement is just that the behavior increases. I mean, my behavior of tantruming every time that my child tantrums would probably increase if it got my child to stop tantruming. But it doesn't, so I have to find a way to get my child to move on throughout his day. So when you look at reinforcement, it's not, there is positive and negative reinforcement, and we can get into that in a little bit, but it's not good or bad. When you go into schools and your teacher says, we're using positive reinforcement, we're telling them good job. That's not reinforcement if it doesn't increase the behavior. So that's what we look at in terms of reinforcement. So whatever your reinforcer is that we'll get to, that's what matters to your child and what will increase the behavior of toileting. So to prepare, potty needs to be a really happy place. If you have been trying this for a really long time and taking your child to the bathroom is at this point just completely aversive, just stop for 3 to 4 weeks and just don't take them, don't do anything, make potty a happy place again. Whatever their favorite things are, we've had parents decorate it like an aquarium, a jungle, an airport, I mean, whatever your child likes, make your bathroom into that. Start keeping track, and we'll get into different ways to collect data, which was pointed out earlier, which is wonderful. But keep track of wet and dry diapers, because that's gonna tell you, really, is your child ready? Like, we're saying that they don't go that often, but how often are you really changing a soaking wet diaper? Bowel movements, any behaviors related to diaper changes, are there any, and when we say behaviors, are there any problem behaviors related to this? And then identifying some motivators, like we just said, something's only reinforcing if it increases the behavior. So where we say, oh, my kid loves PJ Masks, it's his favorite show, but is it his favorite enough to make him go to the potty if he goes to the potty and then gets to watch PJ Masks or whatever it is? So we wanna make sure that we're looking at that. And the last one is what we'll get into, this is what I was talking about with kind of the phase 1 or goal 1 and the phase 2. We wanna reinforce them for sitting, and then we wanna reinforce them for eliminating on the toilet. These are 2 different goals that we need our kiddos to accomplish. They will not pee on the toilet if they're not getting anywhere near the toilet, and I also just realized that has a typo, so I apologize. but they're not going to be if you can't even get them into the bathroom. So anyone in this room have a kid that just won't go near the toilet, won't sit, cries every time that you try? Okay, good, that's super
I
exciting.
got one
Yeah.
that won't get off of.
Oh, well, and then there,
He's still
and
be
then,
sitting there being like,
and then we get the kids that are like, I gotta go, because they want the reinforcer, you know, or they want the preferred item.
He just
Like
likes to sit
sitting
on it.
Well, great, I mean, you wanna come here and spend the rest of the time.
He doesn't do anything, he just sits there.
Mine sits there and puts toilet paper the whole time and just wants to drop
Yeah.
more toilet paper
Right, and
for
you're
40
like,
minutes.
yeah, go to Costco and stock up. So 2 parts to potty training, this is what we kind of talked about. There's a step 1, there's a step 2, that's kind of phase 1, goal 1, phase 2. Step 1 is sitting, we need them to sit before they eliminate. They cannot sit compliantly, that's what needs to be addressed first. It seems like with most of us here, we kind of already checked that off the list. Step 2 is eliminating. Once a child is sitting in the bathroom, then we can try to catch them urinating or defecating on the toilet.
but how long is too long?
To sit,
Yeah.
we can get into that in a little bit, but it really depends on the kiddo.
Yeah.
What you want them to learn is that I come to the potty, when I feel the feeling, I go, I get something, you know, whatever that is for it, and I get off. What we probably wanna look at is kind of giving that, putting him or son or daughter. Daughter, so putting her on a schedule where, you know, timer goes off, she goes in, she sits, and then maybe you even set a timer for her to get up and tell her when she can come back. Maybe something like that, but, cause ultimately, you don't want her just sitting there hanging out if
Yeah,
for
'cause now
45
it's like a
minutes.
preferred activity, it sounds like, to hang out on the toilet.
Yeah,
So you don't want that to be like, hey, this is like my fun time to go stay here. Like,
all day.
probably gets a lot of one-on-one attention from y'all while it's happening.
Yeah.
So you probably, like Ashley was saying, wanna like shorten that time, but you also still wanna have enough time so that she's still sitting long enough to go, to eliminate. But again, you want it, you don't want it to be a fun place. I mean, you want it to be a preferred place, but you don't want it to be like a hangout.
You don't want her to go in there and sit for 45 minutes, then get up and, you know, pee as soon as she goes back.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, you don't want that
Yeah.
happening.
but you want her to know that potty is for
Yeah, you want her to know the purpose of why she's sitting there.
So it's awesome that she loves it. That's great.
Yeah, that's
But,
where you
yeah.
get it's not aversive.
Yeah.
He said he, I misspoke, he's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said daughter and I went daughter, no.
Oh, it was son. Oh, well, yeah.
So, for peeing,
Yes.
you know, like my son could stand, he can't really sit.
That was
because
gonna be
he's-
my
So,
He like always
that's-
falls
yeah.
through and, you know,
That's
so
a really
little
good
hard.
question.
But he is tall enough that, you know, he could pee in the toilet and have him watch daddy, even though daddy's freaked out by that.
Right. Right.
I'm like, suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up.
You have a boy.
Yeah, right.
So,
That's a good question.
because the sitting is hard,
Yeah.
you know,
Sitting
so.
is typically very hard, especially
And
when
he
we're
likes
doing
to
some low
touch the
muscle
water
training.
and everything, so
Right.
standing, but again, you gotta get the standing to be long enough for something
Yes.
to happen
The other thing
in
is,
the,
the reason
toilet.
we typically start with sitting is because you don't want them to stand and poop. So, you know, you want them to sit on the toilet when they defecate as well.
right.
That being said, kinda gotta do what works for your kid, and we'll get into all of that in just a little bit, but that's a wonder, we get that question very often, but we typically start kids sitting because if they're going to poop, you want to catch that in the body as well, and not, you know, behind them, but, that's not to say that for each individual kid, it's not a little bit different, so.
One last thing, don't want to do too.
No, you're fine,
But I hear, sounds like toilet, actual commodes, because we have the little potty plastic thing.
we'll get to that too, yes, wonderful question, and
Or
you,
she
yeah,
sits on the little, or he sits on the little thing.
Yes.
My kid's so big.
right, yeah,
It-
we're
it-
past the little.
He's too big for that, but he can't really sit on a normal toilet. because
What we
he'll fall
typically-
in.
I saw this great thing, and you can get them at the hardware store. It's a toilet seat
Yep.
lid that
Yep.
has a tiny toilet
Yes.
seat on it.
inside the toilet seat,
But
but
it's like,
it's not, no, it's like literally, like the hinge.
It's a 2-in-1. It's got the
that's what I
regular
mean,
and the-
because the little
Yes.
ones that you can take
Yep.
off.
They sell them at Lowe's, Home Depot,
That's all.
everywhere, yeah, and you literally just attach it right onto your commode, right onto your.
Wish I had had that years ago.
Yeah.
That's gonna
That'd be
be,
awesome.
yeah.
Yes,
So should we start using pull-ups before we're
you
starting?
go pull, turkey to the
Diapers.
underwear. So
You do what?
you get cold turkey to the underwear, and we'll talk about that too and why that's important. But
I think pull-ups are a problem there.
pull-ups and diapers are one. If
It's
you
the
cannot potty train a pull-ups. We potty trained probably over 50 kids combined in our careers, and not one child has ever successfully toilet trained while wearing pull-ups.
It's still the feeling of.
Yes.
We've done the underwear with pull-up over.
Yes, and that's an option. Like if you're gonna go run an errand, if you're taking them to school, do underwear first so they feel the dampness on their skin. Pull-ups and diapers these days are so absorbent. It sucks up everything and they never feel that it's wet. So, but again, hopefully we're able to stay ahead of it and catch them going enough times that you can reinforce it. But yeah, we won't get into all that, but you go. That's when I always get the, you want me to buy underwear, like you want no more diapers ever. So terrifying, but yes.
There is a brand of underwear made by Gerber that's
Yes.
thicker for toilet training.
They have the thicker
purposes.
insert right
Yeah.
in the middle, and those are
It's
very
called
helpful.
Gerber
They're called
toilet.
Gerber train.
Gerber train.
Gerber
Yeah.
training pants. You
Yeah.
can get
So
them
there's
at
no
Target.
cotton or wicking, or I mean it's.
It's cotton, but
But
there's
it's not a
no
wicking,
diaper
yeah.
with, no. It's just several layers of cotton. The other thing you can do is they're literally, I think, called like rubber underpants. A lot of times you put them on like, or not you, but like your children will wear them
Like
in
the
swimming
swimming
pools
pool,
and stuff.
yeah.
You could all, like for if you're going to run an errand or something, but you still want, and again, we're human. If you're gonna be in the car, a pull-up for an hour is not going to make or break it. But in general, there are some other things that we can do. But the rubber pants, you can also get those at Target. I think they're a Gerber brand as well. I don't know the weight limit on the largest size, but I think you could probably find a pretty high weight limit on Amazon or something like that. But please even put those on over it. But we'll get to more about all of that as well. When you're starting with sitting, you want to start with the lowest interval that your child will sit for. So if they will only sit for 5 to 10 seconds, you're only gonna require them to sit for 5 to 10 seconds. You're gonna reinforce it with your sitting prize or whatever it is, and then you're gonna move on. What you're gonna do though is you're gonna wanna make sure that they're sitting compliantly for 5 to 10 seconds, whatever that lowest interval is, for several days before you get them to sit for longer. Reason being, like we said with behavior, the longer that you practice something, the better you get at it. The longer your child practices wiggling and crying to get off of the potty, the longer they're gonna try that. The other thing is that we don't want to be manhandling our children to sit on the toilets. That doesn't increase independence. That's not that socially significant behavior we wanna increase. What we wanna increase is that they are independently going to the toilet, sitting for however long, and then they're leaving.
So what are you doing when they're sitting for 5 to 10 minutes? Obviously you're in there, are you reading a book? Are they watching your iPhone?
Yeah.
So what is it that you're actually doing when you're in there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's on our next slide.
Oh,
That's a
okay,
great
sorry.
question. No, that's a
I'm
wonderful
like,
question.
what am I drinking a glass of wine?
Yes, absolutely.
Here's my
Absolutely.
iPad and it's Saturday
Right,
night.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
okay, I can
Bring
do
it
that.
all on. But what you wanna do is, and I think most of our kiddos, it seems like, especially yours, are sitting for a substantial amount of time, but the whole point is that you want this to be a reinforcing thing, so you want it to occur more and more often. You want it to be a happy place, a reinforcing place. We want the child to be successful. So you wanna take wherever that success is. If it starts at 5 seconds, fine. Keep them successful for 5 seconds and then increase it, as they're tolerating it. You can count, you can use a visual schedule, a timer, any other visual cues that will help with that compliance. You can use language such as first and then. First sit, mommy will count and then, or daddy will count, and then, whatever that item is they're gonna get for sitting. We often say, a lot of people are like, oh, we'll give them stickers. Do any of your kids really care about stickers? I don't know, like, probably not. So let's not, give, if your kid loves stickers, great, the more the merrier. But you wanna find that item that matters to them.
You might have this on the slide coming up, I don't remember, but for the then item, for the reinforcing item that they're getting afterwards, one thing to do that helps a lot is if you keep that item only for toileting or sitting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is right there.
Yes.
There are 3. Yep.
So like if they're only getting like, say, if you're into a food item like gummy bears, they only get gummy bears for toileting. They don't get them for snack time, they don't get them after lunch, they only get them then, so that they're never satiated on them, like they really are wanting to work for it. So like be careful if you're gonna choose like the iPad, cause let's be real, our kids probably get those a lot, like I get it. you gotta get stuff done, so you're like, here's the iPad, I'm gonna go take a shower.
Yeah. Then don't use the iPad
Yeah,
for
so
toileting.
don't use the iPad. But, you know, like a certain song, that they only get to listen to at that time, or a certain toy that they only get at that time. It's gonna make the value of that a lot higher, and it's gonna make them want to work a lot more, for it. So, it's just gonna increase that value a lot more.
And that's part of using a behavior analytic approach, is with ABA, you're looking at reinforcement. That's what we do, is looking at what's gonna make this behavior occur more and more and more. And so by doing that, we're looking at how can we increase the value, the immediacy of the delivery, so how quickly you give it, how strong the reinforcer is, how long you get the reinforcer for, and so we're looking at all of that to make sure that it's gonna play into how we're increasing that behavior that we wanna increase. And that's with anything, not just
And make sure you get it, like if you ever say
Yep.
first then, you better do the then.
You better give the then,
than they
yeah.
did the first, like,
Yeah.
a lot of times we'll say like first then, and then you're like, oh, we're out of gummy bears. Like,
Right.
like really, they're probably not gonna sit the next time,
Yeah.
how about that, like, that's not right. So just make sure, like, be prepared, always, so if you're gonna say first then, follow through with it. So.
Step 2 with eliminating, so here we go, we're getting ready to, they're sitting for a good amount of time, and maybe we'll chat later about how to back them up a little bit, that may not be a problem at all of us, it's a good problem to have, but, we can get to that, but with eliminating, we want to stay ahead of it, so give extra liquids, make sure we know that they're probably going to pee maybe a little bit more often than they normally would, that doesn't mean that you're making them drink juice, 70 ounces a day, but just, give a little sips throughout the day of whatever liquid they typically drink is. This is the big one, get rid of all diapers and pull-ups. This kind of going back to one of those first slides when we say, are you ready to start this? Are you really ready to say no more diapers? That does not mean at nighttime. Most of our kiddos are going to need some kind of pull-up or diaper at night for the foreseeable future.
Or nap time, if
Yes,
still
yep,
nap.
absolutely, yeah, thank you. And get some undies. If your kid wants to pick out underwear, that's great. If they don't, having Paw Patrol underwear does not guarantee success in potty training. So you can successfully potty train with just, hey, how are you? You can successfully potty train with just some good old teddy wipes, not a big deal. That being said, if it's a really big deal for your kiddo and they are really into a certain TV show, maybe that's something that would matter to them and reinforce that behavior. And the last one on there is, Tracy touched on choose the reinforcer. Whatever they're gonna get for eliminating, they're only gonna get for actually eliminating, and they don't get it at any other time. So there's not even oh hey, A for effort, you can have that gummy bear anyways. Only gonna get it if they pee on the potty,
And just to add on this, another thing to think about, this just happened with one of our kids, it actually wasn't potty training, it was just a different program, but the gummy bears can lose, like if that's what you're picking, they can lose value.
Yep.
So you might have, like, a week into it, you're like, God, they don't even want to eat this gummy bear. Find something else.
Yep.
Like, you might have to change it, they might get sick of the song, they might get sick of the toy, they might get sick of the food, so you might have to change it. That happens, we get sick of our favorite things too, so it's normal for that to happen, but just know that can happen, so.
Yep. And the last one, take data. So we have some data sheets that we're happy to send to you guys so you can use those, but take data on, what time of day are you taking them? Are they sitting for, a chunk of time? Do they eliminate? Do they have any kind of behavior? And really figure out, exactly what's happening. We don't, in the world of behavior analysis, that kind of, have you ever seen anecdotal data on an IEP before? Like, does anyone ever write, oh yeah, they take anecdotal data? What anecdotal data? Like they had a great day today, or I don't know, like they're, Timmy is, reading words. Okay, well, what words? How many words? How many times? How many prompts? Anecdotal data isn't something that we love. So when we say that, it's really taking data on every single time you take them to the potty. Because what's more reinforcing for you guys than to look at, oh, those first 2 days he only went once, but look at today, he went 6 times. That's reinforcing for you all, and that's gonna keep your behavior of taking your child to the toilet on a schedule increasing if you're seeing the success as well.
And with you taking your own data, you can look back and be like, hey, he's going every single time when I'm taking him every 30 minutes, or he's not, like when I take him every 30 minutes, he's not eliminating or having accidents. Hey, I can probably increase and only take them every 45 minutes, and like you can make your own data-driven decisions.
Yep.
And there are apps for that So
Yes.
in this, technologically driven age,
Yep.
go to the Play Store or to the App Store and type in something about like potty training
Potty
app.
training, recording, potty training data,
Yep.
I'm sure there
And
actually
there's a ton of free ones.
Yep.
And there are alarms, I mean, you could set the alarm on your phone too,
Yes.
but if it's like, we know we're doing this every 30 minutes, type it into your little app, it'll come up, then you record what happened, and then you got it.
I think we just talked about this the other day even, you can also download just a plain interval timer, and you can just set the interval for every 30 minutes, and it'll go off like even in the background of your phone, so even if your phone is locked, that interval timer will still go off, if your phone's not unlocked and open. So, in general, we kind of start with that, again, we're not gonna take them every 5 minutes, kind of that 30 minutes to an hour-ish time frame is what you're looking at. If this is a kiddo that's, never started potty training, you may as well start with kind of that 20-30 minute. If you're a parent that's been working with this for a while and you're like, I can't do that every 30 minutes, you can certainly try taking them every hour, but if you want that initial success, the more that you take them without behaviors. If you're taking them every 30 minutes and they start fighting you on it, maybe it's too often for them and you wanna look at adjusting that time. But kinda like what we said and what Kathy pointed out is that you're gonna do it and do it well and do it right in the beginning, and then you're gonna fade back from there. But the consistency is key for that always, but especially for that first chunk of time. So you wanna use some kind of phrase that everyone can say. Let's go potty, let's go to the toilet, whatever your phrase is. If it's a sign, if that's what your child's signing, you wanna sign it, you have them sign it, and you take them. So they're immediately pairing the sign or the word with the action of going to the toilet. If your child goes, great, reinforce it heavily. Give them whatever that then is, whatever the reinforcer or the preferred item is. If he doesn't go, try again later. We're not saying things like, oh, you didn't go, or, no, you have to go pee-pee in the potty, that's bad, that's wrong. No, we're not gonna use any of that language, we're just gonna ignore the fact that they didn't go, and we're gonna move on. Reason being, the behavior of sitting there and not eliminating, that's not really a behavior. That's not anything that we can reinforce or punish, cause nothing happened. So you wanna make sure that we're ignoring the fact that they don't go, we're just not making a big deal about it, cause the target behavior didn't occur. So you're not gonna do anything, you're not gonna add a consequence. If they do go, you're adding that consequence of the preferred item, and hopefully it reinforces how often your child goes in the future. Does that kind of make sense?
And you keep the interval the same, so if you take them every hour, if they don't go, you wait another hour, or you?
That's a really good question. I think it's gonna depend on kind of what your data says before you get started on how often your child is currently eliminating.
Okay.
So if you notice that your child's diaper is legitimately pretty wet every hour, then you probably wanna take them every 30 minutes. If they don't go, maybe try 15 minutes later. If they go, then maybe restart that 30-minute interval, but that's a great question. So the point is, you're going to find what works for your kid, and if they don't go, I would take them sooner than that next.
Okay, and you're saying just take them, because I'll say, Tristan, you need to go potty, nope.
Well, so, right,
Occasionally
so,
we've been, okay,
Yeah.
and we'll go, but
yeah.
most of the time.
They don't get a choice, it's,
Okay.
we're going
Go.
potty, it's not, don't ever say, do you wanna go potty, the answer's always gonna be no.
Yeah, no, I don't wanna go potty, I wanna keep
Like,
watching
no,
the show.
I wanna keep doing whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
No, that's a high effort task that I don't even know what to do in.
Okay.
Like, no, why would I do that? The answer's always gonna be no, never
Right.
ask, say,
Right.
this is what we're doing. And if they say no, ignore it, you're going.
Okay.
And use the phrases first potty, then whatever.
This is where this is so
Mhm.
important though. If your child is telling you no, they're not gonna go, or if there is any resistance, you've gotta start here with step one. So you've gotta get them even just, hey, walk with me to the bathroom, and then you can have whatever it is. Literally, have your child just walk with you to the bathroom, and then reinforce it. Do that for a few days, and then, hey, come into the bathroom, sit on the toilet. Maybe they sit for 5 seconds, hey, great job sitting, thanks, here's your reinforcer, whatever it is, try that for a few days. But the whole point is, we're not even starting having them eliminate until they are compliantly entering the room and sitting for some, amount of time. And that's a wonderful question, and I'm glad that Tracy pointed it out, because naturally as parents, we always go, do you wanna go, do you wanna come with me to the potty? No?
No.
Okay, you know, then you kind of walk away like, oh, I lost that one, so that's why it's
Yeah.
just, hey, timer's off, time for potty, let's go potty, and then you can have, you know, whatever it is, but you're gonna wanna start with the sitting to make sure that you've accomplished that step one before you get to the step two.
Yeah, you've made it a fun place so that the no shouldn't occur as much. It still might occur just because a lot of our kids just love to
Yeah,
say
he
no.
goes and sits all the time,
Yeah.
it's just, he doesn't like going that often, but he's
Yeah.
also older, I think he can go 2 to 3 hours,
Yeah, absolutely.
so.
One thing I wanted to add too on that last slide about when you're first taking them, I just wanted to remind you that when you're first going, they're not to pull down their pants or pull up their pants or wash their hands, like you're doing all of that for them and do it quick to make the whole sitting process and eliminating all of that stuff easier and low effort, cause all, like, that process is really high effort. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fine motor, it's a lot of skill, like Ashley was saying before, but just a reminder.
Yep.
Even when you're at this step, they're still not doing that yet.
And if that means, any of the kiddos have kind of sensory issues with hand washing, is hand washing an issue for anyone? A lot of times we get parents that say like, you know, I think they would go to the bathroom, but they really hate the sound of the water, the sound of the dry, you know, whatever it is. Use hand sanitizer. You know, I mean, just take a step out of the long, difficult process, or just, I don't know, if you can use anything, whatever, you know, just move on from all of that, while you're washing, but yeah, let's go to the next one. But these are just some important notes, just some things to think about. Have your child sit for the amount of time they can successfully sit without a behavior. Work up to that 5 to 8 minute mark. So kind of to answer your question, I think if she set, or he set, sorry, for that kind of 5 to 8 minutes, you're probably good. You know, he hasn't gone yet, probably isn't gonna go, you know, at that point, and you can always try again a few minutes later, especially if it's a fun place, you know, and he's not gonna mind going back.
Is there a good place for the little portable thing? Because we have it in the bathroom. We thought that's the natural.
You definitely wanna keep it in the bathroom,
Okay.
yeah, because ultimately you want, you wanna take, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but when you look at toilet training, the ultimate goal is that they can go anywhere that they are, you know, in any environment. You don't want them, and that's kind of where the little potties, there's some kind of, you know, issue with that, is that then there's another step to getting them to actually go on the big potty. So I think our initial advice is we always tell parents, just go ahead and you can either get a little potty seat to go on the big potty, you can get stools to go under their feet, because the balance is really important. You know, especially if we're looking at, you know, kiddos with low muscle tone, you want them to be balanced and safe, more, you know, most importantly sitting on, you know, especially if there's some ones that are kind of higher today. So if you can, you know, get them to sit on like one of the potties on the actual toilet, that may be helpful with that. Have them sit for 5 to 8 minutes, reason being, we want to catch them going. We want to stay ahead of the accident. We want to manipulate, like Tracy said, our antecedents, or what's happening before the behavior, to stay ahead of it and catch them doing the right thing, and then reinforce that. Give direct instructions and really direct feedback for eliminating. Go pee-pee, yes pee-pee, great job pee-pee, whatever you want to call it, but making sure there's a really specific word and term for what we're reinforcing. Giving that really direct feedback. You can take them every hour at first. If your child has accidents, shorten the interval by 15 minutes. If you're saying, nope, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right, take them every 30 minutes. You know, whatever works for you and for your child is what's most important. Once they've stayed dry for about 2 days on whatever schedule, I say the hour schedule, but whatever schedule you start with, move it up by just a 15-minute increment. Reason being, you want to keep them successful and you don't want to give them a chance to start having accidents again. And if you immediately notice, oh gosh, my floor is wet all the time again, move it back, not a big deal. They can go for an hour, on the hour, every hour for a month, it doesn't matter. If they're staying dry and they're successful, what you're doing is working, and that's what matters.
Even if they're not verbalizing, so pretty much at that point you have them time trained.
Well, and so that's where it gets into, you're gonna wanna take them probably every 2 hours if they're not indicating or taking themselves. That's a separate kind of step in the process that comes next, is getting them to initiate. We should have pointed this out, but at this stage, we are not expecting them to initiate going potty at all. You're taking them and staying ahead of it. Yes, staying on that schedule, because if we start, and I think that's a question that we get a lot is, well, why can't they just tell me? Well, recognizing the feeling, especially with low muscle tone, which I think someone pointed out, is that's very difficult. So what we want to do is reinforce the behavior of eliminating, and then we'll get back to, hey, now you wanna tell me when you need to go. And over time, once we're pairing the words, the sign, the picture exchange system, whatever it is, we can train that after we get to the eliminating part. Dealing with accidents.
What is the challenge? Is it the cognitive element, which is not getting it quite as fast,
Yeah.
coupled with the low tone and the
Yeah.
behavioral? And
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when we say, you know, when you're looking at that, that, like, you know, in preschool's different, you know, places kind of say, oh, they have to be toilet trained by 3 or 4. No, they don't. They're toilet trained when they're ready to be toilet trained, and that is all the kind of
Well,
things
it
that come
keeps
into
out a
play.
lot of stuff though.
Yeah, right, it keeps our kiddos out of a lot of stuff if they're not toilet trained.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, you're right. So dealing with accidents,
Yeah, so when accidents happen, stay neutral, they're gonna happen, like, this isn't gonna happen on day one, your first trial if they were potty trained, like, let's be real. But don't make a big deal out of it, they happen, we don't wanna give them extra attention for it, because there's a chance for one, that our kids might like that extra attention, even if it is you punishing them, you kind of, if you're raising your voice, telling them like, no, you don't pee on the floor, you pee in the toilet, anything like that, we don't do any of that. You just kind of, you clean it up, you do not make the kid clean it up, you just kind of move on. You take them, you just kind of clean it up and move on.
So you don't say, even if it's not negative, just like, pee in the toilet,
What happened?
like,
we don't recommend doing any of that. Reason being, there's plenty of kiddos that your attention, you are their favorite people in the world. Mom and dad, that's it for them. So your attention could maintain the accidents. And this kind of goes back to your question, what are you doing when they're sitting on the toilet? When we look at what's maintaining behavior, we look at, is a kid trying to get out of something? Are they trying to get access to something? Do they want your attention? Or is it this other kind of, this automatic reinforcement? We get into some of the sensory seeking behaviors there. When you're looking at toileting, making your child clean it up, I don't know, some kids like wiping up spills, some kids really like to clean, and some kids like to be right next to their parent at all hours of the day, and if you're right there with them, making it clean it
I
up,
love it.
that's gonna maintain that
Yeah.
behavior. So no, when when they have an accident, you can certainly, okay, move them out of the way, clean it up, and then a few minutes later, hey, let's go sit on the potty, let me go play a game with you. And if your child is one that's really motivated for that attention and the songs or whatever it is, stay there with them, make a big deal about it, make that the time that they get all of your undivided attention, not when they've had an accident. A lot of times too, like what we talked about, that verbal isn't quite there yet with being able to rationalize what just happened. I don't know, I'm sitting in a puddle of water. Like I don't know what, they don't know what just happened at first. Over time, we can certainly integrate some of that, we had an accident, let's move on, but at first, we're cleaning up the messes and we're moving on. Because we just don't know what's gonna maintain the accident or the eliminating outside of the toilet. Yes.
Do you want to, if they had an accident though, do you want them to try to notice that they're wet, say, oh, you're wet?
That's a really good point. You could certainly just say, oh, your undies are wet, let's go to the toilet and try to pee, let's change clothes. You can certainly say something like that, but I would avoid the, oh, you had an accident, look at your pee, what did you do? That's not right. Because at this point, that's what they're used to doing, a diaper just typically catches it, right? So to our kiddos, I don't know what happened, my legs are wet, they really don't know. A diaper or pull-up has probably always caught it for them. So that probably is a new feeling for your kiddo too. So yeah, you could certainly say, oh, you're wet, let's move on, but keep it simple, neutral, no super exciting, reinforcing voices that, Tracy and I get pretty good at after doing this for so long, but just keep it neutral and move on with it.
And waiting the 2 to 5 minutes, just leaving them in their wet underwear.
No.
You can
absolutely
change it.
Change them right away, we're saying wait 2 to 5 minutes before you take them to the bathroom,
Okay.
because then in the bathroom, you're giving them a lot of fun, one-on-one attention then, so you wanna wait a little bit of
Change them and
time.
then wait a few minutes.
Yeah, so
and
that
then-
they don't think, I have an accident, and then I go in the bathroom and get all this one-on-one time.
Right.
So they don't think that's the chain of
Okay.
events, they think it's, I have an accident and then I get changed. And then a little bit later, I get like, they think it's just a separate event.
So
Yeah,
that
change
makes
them wherever they are, if they're in
Yeah.
the living room,
Yeah.
change them wherever they are, and then you
Yeah.
get them.
Yep.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a couple minutes afterwards,
Yeah.
yeah.
What we want to avoid is the kid has an accident and you go, oh my gosh, you're peeing, and you pick them up and you whisk them up and you pull their pants, you put them on the phone, and you start singing all your songs, and the kid's like, sweet, like all I have to do is pee and then I get all of this. This is amazing. So you want to separate. That's a wonderful question. You want to separate those two events. If they have an accident, you're probably thinking, oh my, well I know actually you want all the words that take place when your child pees on the floor, and but you're wiping it up, you're changing on, moving on, and then you're starting back to, oh hey, the timer goes off, it's time to go potty, let's go. But it's two separate events at that point.
Do you ever, the no underwear thing, like, if you're hunkered down that weekend to start, and then you're moving into the week of,
Mm-hmm.
do you ever just say the no underwear thing? I mean,
What do you mean, no? Like just go bare bottom for
Yeah.
everything? Yeah, I think there's some kind of research and evidence both ways on that. The way that we kind of think about it is if they're what you really want is that they recognize that their undies are wet. As much as our kids kind of like to, probably party naked some of the time, that's not, appropriate in all situations, or most situations, I guess. But, so ultimately you want them to recognize, we think, what is the end goal? Where the end goal is that they pee on an actual, commode, that they are staying dry when they have on their underwear and their pants. So if that's the end goal,
Right.
I would have them, and they don't have to wear pants, but as long as they have on underwear, that's preferred, but, I go on bare bottom for a few days isn't gonna break the process, but it's just,
And
it'll cut down
just-
on laundry.
I think Ashley and I both personally have several kiddos that like to not wear clothes.
Yep.
Like practice undressing.
Yep.
Instructing for, just as part of one of their behaviors, so we just are always
That's
like,
good OT.
clothes all the time.
Yeah.
So that's our thing, so we're always like, yeah, they should probably wear underwear.
Yeah,
I
So
see,
that's just our thing, just so they don't practice not wearing
underwear.
clothes.
not wearing clothes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Cause what starts out as, a super cute, 4 or 5 year old that runs around butt naked, turns into a 16-year-old that runs around, and that's not what we wanna see, so.
yeah, that one's not so fun.
Yeah, right.
Not as cute.
Well, yeah, not as cute when you're 16, so, but that's a really good question. And again, I think, you Google potty training, you're gonna get every approach under the sun. And we talk about some of those towards the end, but what you wanna do is pick the one that works best for your family. Well, hopefully, maybe you learned something here, I don't know. But, you wanna pick the one that works best, but think about the end goal and what you want. You wanna start teaching those behaviors, at the onset of all of this. So what to do when we go out in public, cause cleaning up car seats, kids a lot of us are probably still in car seats, nothing worse than a car seat that's been peed on. So what you wanna do if you're going on outings, try to stick to the schedule. If you're taking them every 30 minutes, you need to be able to take them every 30 minutes when you're going, on an outing. For little girls or little boys even, you can take one of those little potty seats then, put it in the back of your car, whatever it is, you can have them doing that. A mom the other day asked me, what to do, she's going to the beach, and, she was like, can I just take a potty and put it on the beach? And I thought, well, yeah, actually you can, you can totally do that. Little boys, if you want them to just go to the bush and be in the bush behind the car, whatever works for you. That's kind of my life story, so that's what we do, but you do wanna try to avoid pull-ups, and that's where we talked about that y'all had some really great suggestions. The thicker line Gerber training pants, you can put rubber pants on over it. You can do underwear and then a pull-up on over it, but you wanna get away from pull-ups and diapers as much as you can. That being said, you gotta do what works for your family, and again, this is why when Tracy, talked earlier about pick a time where you're not gonna be going on like a 16-hour road trip, probably not the best time to start potty training.
But also be careful too, like, I'm not saying, I get it, I personally don't have kids, but I also understand that y'all go on trips and weekends get busy and things like that. But be careful when you do put a kid in pull-ups, even after further down
Yeah.
on the process, when you put a kid in pull-ups, it still confuses them of
Yes.
where do I go to the bathroom in the toilet or in a pull-up. So it can provide some setbacks even further on down in the potty training process, so just be very careful of that, but also, so like kind of stick to the underwear and then a pull-up if that's something that you're
Yep.
gonna do.
We have a kiddo actually that, kind of toilet trained for almost a year, was doing great, got really sick. This happens as well. and kind of went backwards with potty training, so his parents said, oh, we'll just put him in pull-ups on the weekend. So he started having accidents during the week during our sessions, and we said, what's going on? And kind of through conversation, she said, well, the pull-ups, and we went, wait, what? Pull-ups again? And so, and sure enough, now he's out of pull-ups, now he's back to almost where he was. So it just, they get used to just being able to pee whenever, wherever, and they're not feeling wet, and that's the behavior that they're gonna practice more often. Yes?
Our kiddos often have times with generalizing whatever it is that they're learning. And it just kind of worked out for us. After about 5 weeks after we had started toilet training, we did have to go on this 16-hour trip.
Yep.
And we didn't put them in the pull-ups. We stopped every 2 hours.
And 5 weeks is certainly very different than like
right.
5 days.
But what we found out of that was because we were on this trip and we were at Grandma's house and we were at the campground and we were at rest areas, when we got back from that, he was completely generalized and can go to the bathroom anywhere. Now, we did actually have a portable insert that we carried with us.
Yep.
Because otherwise he was falling in the toilet.
Right, exactly.
Skinny little bottom. So he had that consistency, but by the time we got back, he was perfectly fine to go in any public restroom.
Yep, and that's
So
great.
what do you do when you're out and about, like you're in a restaurant,
Mhm.
right? I mean, were you putting like a towel under him so he wouldn't go in the public, you know what I mean? Like, how are you managing?
Cameron actually learned sitting down. Cameron actually started having bowel movements in the toilet the first day we started toilet training. So, and
But
it's
I mean,
funny.
what if
You're saying if you're at church and your
Oh,
kid's sitting
we
in
actually
the
had a
pew.
portable potty seat.
But
that we
then
had
you're
with
You're
us.
like
in
the
the
little
church
one.
pew,
You're
or
in the
you're
church
in the
pew and you don't want
restaurant.
your kid peeing in the pew.
No, I'm sorry, the portable potty insert is a ring that you stick inside the
So
toilet.
she would just keep it like in her
Oh,
bag.
I'm not understanding
Talking
that.
about
She's just like, just while you're sitting.
The
How are
accident.
you-
Oh, he had an accident.
Well, yeah, like, are you want them to
church,
feel the
at the
wetness,
restaurant.
but are
Right.
you putting like an
Especially in the
absorbent towel?
beginning.
I'm sorry, we didn't go anywhere the first 2 weeks. Yeah, we didn't go anywhere until we saw success
Right.
for at least 2-hour increments.
Yeah.
And then we started doing that, and
I
in
see.
church, we got up. And okay, if it's 2 hours, we got out and took him to the restroom.
Yeah.
But yeah, until we moved from that 30 minutes going to the bathroom
Right.
at the beginning
Yeah.
to 2 hours, I mean,
You're just
we
hungry.
didn't take
Yeah.
him to the grocery store, we didn't do anything.
You guys are all nervous about this, and there's reason to be, but you take your data and it works, and you know when your kid is gonna go, and you stay on that schedule, and they really get success quickly, much faster than you believe it will happen.
Well, I will tell you, the timer, like the kitchen timer works, it's like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah.
You put, we had a.
Well, that's like literally where behavior analysis started.
Yeah.
Like that's like actually why we're all here right now, is because of Pavlov and his dogs. Yeah,
And
that's
then
where
we-
it's gonna
And
be.
then it was just a kitchen timer from Walmart, and then we ended up clipping it to Tristan's backpack, and
Mhm.
it would go off in the middle class, and all his friends were into it. They're like, Tristan, time to go.
So it's literally
A
like, you
kitchen
can't
timer,
hear the
a
ding.
$10
and-
It becomes a conditioned stimulus, and so over time, he hears the ding, he pees, he gets a preferred item.
And then it would stay dry
Timer
until
pees,
that thing
preferred
would
item.
go off.
Over time, that's exactly what happens.
Your data works, it
Yeah.
works.
And
I am a 2-time survivor of this. I did it with my daughter who has Down syndrome, and I did it with my son who does not have Down syndrome, and he was potty trained in no time.
And the sick, have you saying that child was sick, so,
Yeah.
like, we've had such successes with Tristan, and then he was just hospitalized last week for heart surgery, and was in the hospital for a week, and there's a point, he looks at me, he's like, potty, and I'm like, but you have IVs and chest tubes, so,
Right.
literally, I looked at him and I was like, it's okay, you have a diaper on.
Yeah, and again,
So it's like, here we are, back to square one, and
Yep.
this is constantly
well,
happening.
and you know what, if you've had success in the past, you're probably not back to square one, maybe it's like 1B, but you're not all the way back to square one. Like, you've done this before, you know it can work, you know he can physically do it. So hopefully, and that's just one of those where, you so wonderfully pointed out that that's why we say, like, and this is a great time to do it right before summer break, but you literally, that's what you do for, an intense week or two. When we say it's not intense, like, we're not living on the toilet, we're not taking every 5 minutes, but, as a parent, that is the skill that you are teaching your child for that chunk of time. And then, as you see in your data, wow, he is going, every time I take him, every 30 minutes, let's back it up to 45 minutes for the next few days. He's not having accidents, going every time we take him 45 minutes, back it up to an hour. But you do it based on your data, not based on, oh, my laundry load seems kind of lighter, maybe they're not having as many accidents. No, it's based on what your data collection is showing you.
Please, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, well, moving on. So we talked about this earlier, toileting versus toileting process. Get to the whole pants up, pants down, getting redressed, get to that later. Teach the actual elimination first, and then you can start increasing your demand level with getting them, to do all of this, to do the whole process and washing hands. Indicating prompts.
Yeah, so slowly fade yourself out of the bathroom, as they're going more often. When you're at that 2-hour mark probably, start fading yourself out. You can say it's time to go potty, walk yourself in, and then you can kind of start stepping back, step in the doorway, step in the hallway, kind of just get yourself out of there. Or, I mean, in your case, they'll tell you to get out, in some form. And then when it's time to go potty, you can say we need to go potty. And then you, this is how you kind of start teaching the requesting. You need to, and then they fill in potty. And so that's how they'll start kind of requesting potty. If they don't say potty, signing, using a picture for requesting, and it's still on that schedule, but that's how they're starting to request, like, oh, I have to say something here, like, I'm just not taken. And so it kind of comes a little bit naturally, but, and then, here, you can take.
Nighttime, come back in 6 months and we'll talk about it, and I'm just kidding. But, once there's independence during the day, the hope is that your child's bladder does actually become more controlled. You know, the bladder elasticity will get better the longer that they're able to hold, and then they're able to hold it overnight. So you get to the overnight part once your child is once you realize that they're waking up, you know, several mornings of the week and they're dry, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Once they're doing that for about 2 weeks, then maybe it's time to try underwear at night, but that's kind of it. And you know, you can also ask your pediatrician their, you know, opinion about those things, but this is probably the most important part of the whole presentation. Here's a simple, you can make this in a Word document. We can send you the ones that we use. You're gonna have your date. You can also record who took them potty. Sometimes we find one person has success over others. We can, and then you can kind of figure out why. The date, who took them potty, what time you went, were their underwear dry, did they urinate, did they have a bowel movement in their underwear, and then what did they do on the toilet. Obviously, the end goal is that undies are always dry, and the toilet, they're urinating or having a bowel movement in. But this is just real simple data collection, and it works. We point this out, we are not doctors, we don't claim to be doctors, but just keep an eye out for constipation. The more that we're teaching our children to hold their bladder, the more they typically hold bowel movements as well. You wanna make sure that they're still defecating on a pretty regular for your child, whatever that means, schedule. So just pay a close attention to the consistency of the bowel movement, not necessarily how often, but making sure, and your pediatrician can tell you this, but making sure that their bowels are normal, they're not seeming, you know, rock hard, they're not screaming to get them out. What we don't want is to all of a sudden have a child that has been, you know, defecating normally to all of a sudden become constipated when you're putting this extra demand of toilet training on them. So just keep an eye out for that. Again, not speaking harshly to accidents, that can kind of come to the constipation side too, because if you're yelling at your child, not that any of you would do that, but you know, if you're punishing your child for not holding it, then they start holding it too much, some of that constipation can come into play. So that's just something that ethically we like to make sure that we throw into our potty training talks, that you keep an eye out for that. And then here's just some books. Of course, the one we put on there is Toilet Training in Less Than a Day. Do we think it works? Not necessarily, but you're welcome to read it and find out and let us know. There's also some other good ones that are on there as well. And that's it. These are our email addresses, our website. Please email us anything that y'all need. We're always happy to respond. We actually, from the last talk, still keep in touch with probably 3 or 4 of the families that were there and just, you know, hear their successes and whatnot back and forth. So please let us know if there's anything that we can do. And thanks.
You sell your services?
Yeah, well, that's so like what we do.
Can I hire you?
And do you, does insurance cover you?
It does, yeah. Now, insurance covers when there is a diagnosis of autism for applied behavior analysis therapy.
Not Down syndrome.
No.
Now, there are some, we haven't seen that. There are some employers that will choose to allow for that, but it's very employer specific.
What
So-
if your pediatrician writes a prescription, does that?
I mean, we can always fight it, we're always happy to investigate and see what we can figure out, but typically applied behavior analysis is covered as a treatment for autism spectrum diagnosis, which stinks because it's just basic behavior, I mean, it's how we all get through our day. So that's a tough one, but if there's enough interest, we are always happy to do some kind of workshops, a series of workshops, that way it's, kind of like this environment, we're always happy to do that, but
But if insurance doesn't cover you, you do this privately?
Yeah.
Like you'll go to homes and.
yeah, that's what we do
And that's all on
in-home,
your
yeah,
website?
yeah, it's all there, yeah, we do in-home and school and community therapy. So
Joanna,
that's-
Cam's 12 and he wouldn't be toilet trained if we hadn't had an ABA therapist working with
Well,
him.
I just-
I'm telling you, I was horrible at toilet training with my typically developing kids.
Yeah, I'm horrible.
I was,
it
it was horrible.
I just paid a ton of money and signed Tristan up for a 2-day potty boot camp at Cornelius that comes highly recommended.
I've heard about these.
And I talked to a Down syndrome mom who had success with her child. So I'm desperate, I signed him up, he was actually scheduled to go next week, I pushed it back because of his surgery, but I'd rather do instead of 2 days.
This was incredible for us, and again, it comes down to the data. And it
Right.
came down to, Natalia was the person we were working with, and I would
But
email Natalia and
Natalia
say,
came to your house and helped you?
she did, but now, I wanna tell you, it was part of a package. Natalia had already been working with us,
Yes,
on
yes.
compliance concerns, basically, because Cam tells me top, and, because was completely non-compliant.
Yeah.
So we were already working with her on that, and we had set goals for what we wanted for Cameron, and one of them was for him to be toilet trained. So she was in the house, she was monitoring our data, we'd send our spreadsheet to her, and she'd say, okay, move to 45 minutes. Okay, move to an hour, move to an hour and a half. And she would analyze our data and give us that feedback, and,
And
yeah.
you do like a 2-week thing?
I
Or
mean,
is it just depending, you do like an
It
do you do like
completely-
an evaluation of the
yeah,
child?
it completely
Okay.
depends on where the child is and what their needs are, yeah.
And you taped this, right? Because the dad needs to,
Yeah, there's always
Yeah,
an extra.
for sure, yeah.